That should be correct. Let's throw the switch. I'm sure if anything terrible happens, the damage won't be permanent. At least that's what they told me in 7th grade. Assholes. Some of these notes are really interesting. I mean, some of them, are communications between, two different characters, and you'll see a lot of notes from the same characters over and over and over, and it's kind of interesting to, to get that information. And you'll begin to see how, that person's relationship with another character or with Jean, the patient, how that developed, and again, it's an interesting storytelling mechanic. It's not unlike things that we've seen in other games, but it is kind of interesting, and just I think that the context of how much of Ether 1 is voluntary as far as the gameplay, the amount of narrative that you want to experience. Although it doesn't have maybe player choice in the sense of dialogue trees and branching narratives and things like that, there is quite a bit of choice as far as just how much of the game you want to experience, how deeply you want to dive into it. Let's see here. Can you potentially hurt the patient by rooting around in their mind? That's an interesting question, and I'm not going to answer it right now because there's something that's going to be happening in the game in just a minute that I think will maybe be a good illustrative measure.
I'm not sure how they got here, but I think they relate to our patient's history. Don't worry, you won't need these to progress this evening as they're an optional task, but we should at least give this one a try.
So, we're still very early in the game, and obviously there's a little bit of the gameplay tutorial going on here. But as I was saying earlier, the projectors are an indication that there is a puzzle in the area that can be solved, and I think that you actually kind of have to solve this one. But from this point forward in the game, they are optional. If you hover over an object and hold down the left mouse button, you'll get a little bit of information about it. So in this case, we see it's a projector, and there are 0 parts restored. And since you can see that the projector is in 1, 2, 3 sections, in order excuse me, in order to restore it, that will probably end up being kind of a 3-step process. So, like any good puzzle or any good puzzle solver, we're going to start by looking around in the environment and seeing what's about. So let's start with this note here.
I'll store important notes like this downstairs in the case for you.
Okay. One interesting thing to note here. This is one of the subtle ways that the game tells you, hey, this is important. Most of the notes that we've picked up, you'll notice, have created an overlay on the screen and just white text on top of a semi-transparent black background. This note, however, you can see is like we're actually kind of seeing a scaled up view, or it's like a zoomed in view of the texture. And this handwritten note from Dan to Steve talking about how he can't find the air compressor manual anywhere, and that means that we can't get the door to budge, and that we need Steve's telling Dan, I need this air compressor manual, and if you find it, could you please put it here on my desk? So the fact that this note looks different than the other notes that we've seen is significant. And then of course Phyllis just informed us that important notes like this will show up in the case. So if we return to the case and we walk downstairs, you'll see that that there's these 3 whiteboards, and so here we find that note again. So this is without the game making a big deal about it. Again, not really holding your hand, letting you kind of explore. It is telling you, however, that that notes that you see like this are going to have important information, and that's going to be necessary to solve puzzles. All right, so we've got.
Touch throughout our life can stay with us in the back of our minds.
Usually, anytime you pick up an object that triggers some sort of statement from Jean or from Phyllis, that's usually something worth hanging on to. So we're going to hang on to that bottle for just a second. And then if we pick up this note, we see that there's an important piece of information here. The bloody air hoses have been clogged up again, which means I'm going to have to puncture a hole in the rubber pipes to clear the smoke up down here, and I don't care how I do it. So already a plan is forming. It seems like we need to locate an air compressor manual, and we also need to puncture some rubber hoses to relieve pressure. And then we have creepy little notes like this one. And my life was better for that. So we're just going to explore around a little bit more here, and this is kind of where this is the end of the line right here. This is, in theory, the pressure door that we're trying to get through. So anyway, let's go back for a second here. Now, you'll see all these items on the ground. Some of these things you'll be able to pick up, some of them not. But usually, items of interest, if you'll mouse over them, they'll have some sort of entry. If you hold down the left mouse button, for example, it tells you that this is a radio and that this is a note. All right, so we need to puncture some holes in some hose, which means that we need a sharp object. And we don't have a sharp object, but what we do have is this glass bottle here. And if you examine the bottle, you'll see it says reinforced glass, shatter resistant up to 72 psi. And I think that the question that we're all asking ourselves is, does this metal press here produce more than 72 psi? Let's find out!
They're both broken and fragmented. They hold the key to remembering the way we were.
A fella could win a bar fight with that kind of jagged glass. All right, so now that we have that, let's go see what we can do about this. Go see what we can do about this this hose problem. Now, just for illustration, if you come back here and look at this, you'll notice that the projector now has one part restored. So what we have done has advanced this puzzle by one step. So again, the projectors lying strewn about serve as an indication of the presence of a puzzle, as well as giving you some idea as to whether or not you're making progress with it. All right, so we're going to puncture some hoses and rubber pipes here, which is, I mean, let's face it. Does anybody have anything better to do with a Tuesday? Do we really? Let's see. What's up, everybody? I'm seeing why J.H. Burton. Would that be our good friend James? All right, so here we go, and let's see what this note is. I don't think I found that one the first time, The Devil's Chamber Part 1. Oh, and what's this?
Spray of perfume and it all
Industrial
tastes
Mining
wonderful.
Air Compressor Owner's Manual. And of course, since we know from the note that we picked up earlier, Steve or Dave, I can't remember. It was Dave. Dave told him to bring the air compressor manual back. That's actually maybe my favorite part of Mallrats. Tell him, Dave. Fuck you, fanboy! All right, here we go.
The briefest moment
So we've returned the air compressor manual to the desk, as per the note from Steve Dan. Ah, see, not quite as clever as I thought. But now we have the completely restored projector, and if we turn it on, we get a note from Phyllis here. Awesome sauce, James. Glad you could join. I think that this is the first time I've ever live streamed a game, and one of the devs was actually watching the live stream. That's pretty cool. This is also going to be handy if I get into trouble later on. I'm just going to tap you on the shoulder.
I don't know where you are in there or what it looks like to you, but our readings have trebled in the last few seconds. You must be incredibly close to the center of this memory. I think... There it is. Our readings, they're showing that this is what's causing the symptoms of dementia in our patient. Or at least it's part of what's causing it.
Alrighty.
Destroy it any way you can. Once the task is done, I'll be able to extract you from the memory and place you in another.
All right, we've already had plenty of experience breaking shit with the industrial press, so here we go. What could go wrong, right?
God's sake, not again! It's resisting! Whatever you do, don't listen to it! It's trying to stay attached to the mind in any way it can. You can't trust it! Hit the switch, Restorer! Destroy it and we can access further parts of the mind! It needs to be destroyed! Hit the switch now!
What have you done, you stupid rat? You've ruined everything. Oh, God, no. It's...
Restorer, you need to keep moving if you're going to survive.
Shit's getting real now. Look out. I went right last time. Let's try going... Oh, I can't go left. Huh. I guess I didn't go right. I guess I only thought I went right. I've had dreams exactly like this. So...
Like stars are passing me by, burning so bright and so fast as if they never truly existed at all. They're so beautiful.
So,
So fragile.
going back to one of the questions that was asked earlier in chat
I want to
about
hold on and never
whether or
let
not
go.
you can damage the patient's
I
mind by
can't
mucking
hold
about,
anymore.
suddenly that sequence turns a lot of things on its head, and certainly in the tradition of something like maybe Portal or something like that, where you suddenly start questioning the motives of the disembodied narrator and kind of wondering about, gee, what's really going on here, and you know, am I here to do the job that I think I am, or is there some other, maybe more nefarious plot afoot that I am an unwilling party to? All kinds of interesting foreshadowing going into that, and that was the moment in the game where suddenly it took me from, oh, this should be an interesting experience, I really like puzzle games, and it seems like this will be a fun one, and suddenly I was like, ooh, I really want to know what's going on here. I really want to know what's happening next. James is teasing me and telling me I can go left. All right, I'll have to try that. I'll have to try that next time.